Hey everybody, Sean Holsinger here from HolsingerSflyShop.com again. Bringing you another video. This is another nymph video. Blowtorch. Really productive fly for me here lately. I've been fishing it a good bit. Between this and the two-tone nymph that I put on there the other week, I've primarily had one of the two of those on the line at all times. And, a mop fly or whatever else decides it's working that day. And it's just kind of been one of my confidence flies. So give this fly a try. It's not really hard to tie, and just a couple kind of materials to do it with. And don't be afraid. Like, I'm going to use CDC for a collar on it. Use a little bit of different colored ice dub or whatever you want, or you can skip the collar altogether. Just whatever you feel comfortable doing. I like the look of the CDC on this. It gives it a nice leggy look. It gives you lots of a little bit more action to it under the water. So let's sit back and watch the video. Okay, this is the Blowtorch. Great check nymph pattern, great searching pattern, just an attractor style fly. Not really imitating anything in particular, just gonna, just flashy and gonna find the fish for you. Let's get started on it. We're tying it on a fire hole hook on a 633 and a size 12. Tie it smaller if you like. And the bead I'm using is a 1/8 or a 3.5 millimeter bead. The one I'm using is a tungsten bead, but it's a brass color or a gold color. So whatever you have, doesn't really matter. If you got pink, purple, whatever. I'm gonna put some little bit of lead on it, 0.015 lead, and I'm gonna get about 10 wraps. Partially to give it more weight. I try to weight my flies as much as I can, and because I'm not in the check nymph, Euro nymph style fishing, we're not putting any weight on the line, we're putting it all into our flies, so I don't hold back on the wraps. Also, the other thing it's going to do is I'm going to push that bead tight up against the hook eye, and it's going to hold it in place for me when I wrap it down. So we're going to use the thread. I'm using 140 denier orange. Fluorescent orange, and we're just going to cover that lead up, and then I'm going to put a tail on it. For the tail, I'm using some Antron, and this is the orange Antron, and we're just going to give it a little orange butt. Just put it on there on the top, and we're going to wrap it back to the start of the bend. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to put on is some crystal flash, and we're going to use a pearl colored crystal flash. This is going to be one of our ribbing materials. And we're just going to put one strand of the crystal flash on. And I put it on one of the sides. And we're going to wrap it back there to the bend to where we started our tail. And then the next thing I'm going to put on is another piece of ribbing, and I'm going to use a brassy silver on this one. And the original pattern, I believe, calls for, I think, a 5X tippet, like a 3 or 4 pound tippet, but I like a little extra flash, so I give it the silver. And we're just going to tie it down with that. And a lot of it is to protect that crystal flash. The crystal flash is not real strong. Trout have nice sharp teeth, and they'll tear that crystal flash up pretty easily. So that's why we're gonna rib back over it. Next thing we're gonna use is some Peacock Black Ice Dub. There we go. And we're just gonna dub that on. I'm gonna use a little bit of wax. And it's a nice hot day here in central Pennsylvania. My wax is really sticky and runny today. We're gonna go kind of thin on it. My goal is more or less just to cover up the thread. I don't want to use too much dubbing. If you use too much, you build up an unnatural sized body. That's one of the biggest problems that beginners especially have in tying, especially when you get into your wet flies and stuff like that, where you have a smaller bodied fly to begin with. You can get away with it a little bit more in the nymphs, but you want to keep your body as small as you can. It's more natural looking. So once we get that on there real nice and tight, we are just going to start back here at the bend and wrap it forward. Now you can switch colors and just do an orange collar if you want, but I don't waste my time switching colors. And then I'm going to go right up here behind, just a hair behind the bead, enough that I'm going to put a collar on there. And then we're going to start wrapping our ribbing up, and we're just going to start off with the crystal flash so we get it underneath, and we're just going to make nice even wraps. And with this size 12, I'll get about 4 or 5 wraps on there and tie it off. Okay, and then we'll cut that off. Then we're going to reverse wrap with the silver wire to protect the crystal flash. And same thing there, 4 or 5 wraps there. It's going to protect it, and it's going to add a little bit extra flash. Now comes the most difficult part of the fly. Not the helicoptering this off, but there we go. The most difficult part about this fly is putting the collar on, if you're going to do it the way I'm doing it here. I have 2 CDC feathers here in my hand, okay? And the stems, you can see this one, I already used half of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stack these 2 on top of each other, and I'm going to put them in my little Stonfo clamp. And this clamp is kind of like a paper clip. There you see I have them stacked on top of each other. This is like one of those paper clips for big wads of paper. I'm going to clamp this, and I'm going to leave about 1/8 of an inch in between the stem of the feather. Get it in front here. Between the stem of the feather and the clamp. I can pull out just a hair. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut right along that stem, so I just leave all these fibers stuck in that clamp. So I'm going to do that real quick. And this is you can palmer the CDC, but doing it this way tends to leave your fibers a little bit smaller. Like this isn't a big huge fly, and the CDC feathers tend to sometimes get very long. There you can see I cut this off and there's no stem there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bodkin and I'm going to separate. I'm going to push my bodkin in between, and I'm going to separate this like this, okay? And then I'm going to stick this down in between. And when I do that, I'm going to need a little bit more thread out. Oops, and I lost it. I made it look so easy there at first. Now it's going to get difficult on me. Okay, by separating these and trapping, what I'm doing is I'm trapping them fibers in between the thread. There you can see I trap these in between the thread, and now I'm going to spin it, and it's going to make a dubbing brush out of it. And when I spin it, I'll just give my bobbin a spin, and it makes a nice little dubbing brush, you can see there with it. Okay, then we're just going to wrap that dubbing brush and make our collar with it, and as I do it, I'm pulling those fibers back towards the back. Like I said, that was the most difficult part of the fly. And then we're just going to make a nice little collar here with our orange thread. Why we use the orange thread, you see it didn't come through. That's why I don't bother to change threads just to make a collar. If it was something that came through, then yes, I would switch threads. But there we go, we got a nice little collar on it. So we got a little flash at the front, a little flash at the back, and then this is a hair long for me. I'm going to trim it down about right there. That's all that's to it. The blowtorch fly is, like I said, it's a great confidence fly, especially when you're Euro nymphing, and give it a try. It's been working for me. I've had my son Colton out fishing with it. He's been catching a good many fish on it now. He's really picking up the Euro nymphing real well, and this is a good fly for him. He likes it. So all the material you need to tie this, you can find at our shop at holsingersflyshop.com. Give us a check there, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm constantly coming out with new videos, once or twice a week, so you always have some new content to watch. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I'm Sean Holsinger.